Listen, do you hear that? That crackling, that whisper, that ancient roar buried beneath the static of your daily existence. It's the sound of embers, divine embers, still glowing in the depths of your soul, waiting to be fanned into the inferno you were created to be. There is a fire in you, not metaphorically, not poetically, literally, tangibly, eternally. There burns within your very essence a flame that was lit by the breath of the Almighty Himself. And if you cannot feel it, if you cannot hear its call, if you have forgotten the heat that once coursed through your veins like liquid lightning, then you have forgotten who you are. You have forgotten that you are not merely human. You are divine fire, wrapped in flesh, eternal flame housed in temporary clay. The very breath of God, walking on two legs through a world that has convinced you that you are small, weak, ordinary. But ordinary you, the being for whom galaxies were hung like chandeliers, the creature into whose nostrils was breathed the breath of the Creator of all things, the soul who was given dominion over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." Genesis 1:26. The original flame, in the beginning, when time itself was just a whisper in the mind of eternity, when darkness covered the face of the deep and the Spirit of God moved upon the waters, something unprecedented was about to unfold. Something that would make the angels lean forward from their thrones, something that would cause creation itself to hold its breath in anticipation. God was about to create you. Not the you that struggles to pay bills, not the you that questions your worth, not the you that feels overwhelmed by life's circumstances. No, the you that existed in the mind of God before the foundation of the world. The you that was designed to walk with deity, to commune with the divine, to exercise power and authority that would make the very elements bow in recognition. When God formed man from the dust of the earth, He didn't use just any method of animation. He didn't speak you into existence like He did the stars. He didn't command you to appear like He did the mountains. No, the Creator of the universe bent down, put His mouth to your mouth, and breathed His own breath into your lungs. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Genesis 2:7. That breath, that divine breath, it carried with it something no other creature has ever received: fire, the fire of God's own nature, the flame of His character, the spark of His unlimited potential. Do you understand what this means? You are not just dust animated by divine breath. You are dust infused with divine fire. You are earth ignited by heaven. You are the finite touched by the infinite, and that touch left a permanent mark, a flame that burns with the very essence of who God is. Listen to your heartbeat. Each pulse is a reminder that the fire still burns. Feel the electricity in your thoughts. Each synapse is evidence that the flame still flickers. Notice the dreams that wake you in the night, the visions that haunt your quiet moments, the impossible things that call to you from beyond the veil of what seems realistic. That's not wishful thinking. That's not fantasy. That's the fire in you recognizing what it was created for. The fascinating wonder of your design. Look around at creation. Study the animals. Marvel at their instincts, their abilities, their perfectly designed systems. The eagle soars with magnificent grace, but it will never write poetry about the wind beneath its wings. The lion hunts with deadly precision, but it will never compose symphonies about the hunt. The dolphin navigates with supernatural intelligence, but it will never paint portraits of the ocean's moods. But you were designed with capacities that make angels envious and demons tremble. You were created with faculties so extraordinary that the very mention of what you're capable of seems impossible to believe. You can create something from nothing with just your thoughts. You can love someone who has never loved you. You can forgive those who have wounded you beyond measure. You can dream of futures that don't yet exist and then bring them into reality through sheer force of will and divine partnership. You can stand in the face of impossibility and declare possibility. You can look at chaos and envision order. You can see beyond the veil of the physical realm and commune with the supernatural. You can carry the very presence of God within your mortal frame and release heaven into earth through your words, your prayers, your very existence. What is mankind that you are mindful of them, human beings that you care for them? You have made them a little lower than the angels and crowned them with glory and honor. You made them rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under their feet. Psalm 8:4-6. No other creature was given this mandate. No other being was crowned with such glory. No other living thing was entrusted with such honor. The animals operate by instinct. You operate by choice. They are bound by their nature. You have the power to transcend yours. They exist within the limits of their design. You were designed to break limits. The fire in you burns with creative power that mirrors the Creator himself. It flames with authority that was meant to subdue kingdoms and establish order. It blazes with potential that can transform not just your own life, but the lives of everyone you encounter. So why do you feel so ordinary? Why do you struggle with feelings of inadequacy? Why does your life feel so much smaller than the fire within you suggests it should be? Because somewhere along the way, the fire was banked, the flame was dimmed, the blaze was reduced to barely glowing embers. The great theft. The enemy knew. From the very beginning, he knew what you were capable of. He understood the fire that burned within you because he himself was once a burning one, a seraph who carried the flame of God's glory until pride extinguished his light and cast him from the presence of the Most High. He knew that if you ever fully awakened to who you really are, if you ever fully embraced the fire within you, if you ever stepped into the fullness of your divine design, his kingdom of darkness wouldn't stand a chance. So he orchestrated the greatest theft in history, not the theft of gold or silver or precious stones, not the theft of kingdoms or crowns or earthly power. He stole something far more valuable than any treasure this world has ever known. He stole your sense of identity. He stole your awareness of the fire. He convinced the very beings who were created to rule and reign that they were weak, fallen, hopeless creatures destined to struggle through life as victims rather than victors. The serpent's question in the garden wasn't really about fruit. It was about identity. "Has God really said?" he whispered. And in that question was the seed of every doubt that has ever plagued the human soul. Are you really who he says you are? Do you really have what he says you have? Can you really do what he says you can do? And when Adam and Eve bit into that fruit, they weren't just disobeying a command. They were buying into a lie about their own nature. They were trading their identity as fire carriers for the false identity of fallen creatures. They were exchanging their sense of unlimited potential for a consciousness of limitation, lack, and loss. The fire didn't go out. It couldn't go out because it was the very breath of God within them. But it was buried beneath layers of shame, fear, and false beliefs about what it means to be human. For generations, mankind wandered in the wilderness of this stolen identity. Some caught glimpses of the fire, the heroes of faith who moved mountains and parted seas, the prophets who called down fire from heaven and raised the dead, the kings who established justice and reigned with wisdom that came from beyond this world. But for most, the fire remained a distant memory, a faint echo of what they were created to be. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23. That word glory, it doesn't just mean God's glory. It means the glory you were created to reflect, the fire you were designed to carry, the divine nature you were meant to manifest. Until the fire came down from heaven again. the restoration of the flame. 2,000 years ago, something happened that changed everything. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. God himself put on humanity like a garment and walked the earth as one of us. But he didn't come just to show us what perfect humanity looked like. He came to restore what was stolen. He came to rekindle the fire. Jesus wasn't just a good teacher or a moral example. He was the second Adam, the new prototype of what humanity was always meant to be. In him, the fire burned without hindrance. Through him, the power flowed without obstruction. By him, the authority was exercised without compromise. When he spoke, demons fled. When he commanded, storms obeyed. When he touched, diseases disappeared. When he looked, hearts were transformed. He wasn't operating with some special divine power that was unavailable to others. He was operating as a fully awakened human being in whom the fire burned bright and clear. Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. John 14:12. Did you catch that? Not just the same works, greater works. Jesus didn't come to show you what you could never achieve. He came to show you what you were created for. He came to demonstrate what happens when a human being fully embraces the fire within. But the restoration wasn't complete until the cross. There, on that wooden instrument of torture, the penalty for our stolen identity was paid. There, the curse that had dimmed our flame was broken. There, the way was opened for us to return, not just to the garden, but to something even greater than what Adam lost. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. Galatians 4:4-5. Adoption to sonship. Not just forgiveness of sins, not just a ticket to heaven when you die. Sonship, the restoration of your identity as a child of the Most High God, the rekindling of the fire that makes you capable of all things. When Jesus rose from the dead, he didn't just conquer death for himself, he conquered it for everyone who would believe. He didn't just reclaim his own authority, he reclaimed the authority that was always meant to be ours. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go, Matthew 28:18-19. He received all authority, and then he delegated that authority to us. The fire that burns in him is the same fire that burns in you. The power that raised him from the dead is the same power that now works within you. The authority that gave him dominion over every principality and power is the same authority that has been placed within your reach. But here's the crucial point. It's not automatic. It's not just magically activated the moment you believe. It remains dormant until you renew your mind and rekindle the flame. The sleeping giant. Right now, at this very moment, there is a sleeping giant within you. It's been slumbering under layers of religious tradition, cultural conditioning, and personal disappointment. It's been sedated by the mundane, anesthetized by the ordinary, and convinced that this small, struggling version of yourself is all there is. But every now and then it stirs. Every now and then you feel a rumbling in your spirit, a quickening in your pulse, a sense that there is something more, something infinitely more available to you. That stirring? That's the fire recognizing itself. That's the divine nature within you pressing against the limitations you've accepted. That's the sleeping giant beginning to wake up. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Romans 12:2. The transformation doesn't happen through trying harder or doing more. It happens through renewing your mind, through changing the way you think about yourself, about what's possible, about who you really are. For too long, you've been thinking with an earthly mind about heavenly realities. You've been using natural reasoning to understand supernatural truths. You've been evaluating your potential through the lens of your past experiences rather than through the lens of your divine design. But what if you started thinking differently? What if you began to see yourself the way God sees you? What if you started believing about yourself what He believes about you? What if you stopped identifying with your weaknesses and started identifying with your strengths? What if you stopped focusing on your limitations and started focusing on your limitless potential? What if you stopped seeing yourself as barely getting by and started seeing yourself as more than a conqueror? The renewing of your mind is not just positive thinking. It's not just affirmations or visualization exercises. It's the complete transformation of your self-concept based on the truth of who you are in Christ. When your mind is renewed, when your thinking is transformed, when your self-perception aligns with God's perception, something magnificent happens. The sleeping giant awakens. The fire is rekindled. The full force of your divine nature is released. The rekindling process. But how? How do you fan dying embers back into a roaring flame? How do you wake up a giant that has been sleeping for so long? How do you rekindle a fire that seems to have been reduced to cold ashes? First, you must remember. You must go back to the beginning and remember who you were before the world told you who you were. You must remember that you are not an accident, not a mistake, not an afterthought in the grand design of creation. You were conceived in the mind of God before time began. You were planned, purposed, and designed for greatness. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Those plans weren't small plans. The God who spoke galaxies into existence doesn't have small plans for anyone. The fire within you burns with the potential to accomplish things that will make your current dreams seem modest by comparison. Second, you must reject the lies that have kept the fire banked. The lie that you're not qualified, the lie that you're not equipped, the lie that you're not called, the lie that you're too old, too young, too broken, too ordinary, too late, too early, too much, not enough. Every one of these lies is an enemy of the fire. Every limiting belief is fuel that's been stolen from the flame. Every I can't is a bucket of water thrown on what was meant to be a blazing inferno. Third, you must speak to the fire. You must call it forth. You must declare its existence and command its manifestation. The same power that called light out of darkness, that spoke worlds into existence, that commanded the dry bones to live, that power is in your mouth. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Proverbs 18:21. Stop speaking death to your dreams. Stop speaking limitation to your potential. Stop speaking impossibility to your circumstances. Start speaking life. Start speaking power. Start speaking possibility. Call forth the things that are not as though they were. Speak to the mountains in your life and command them to move. Declare what God has declared about you. Prophesy to your own soul and watch the fire begin to glow. Fourth, you must take action. Faith without works is dead, and fire without fuel quickly dies out. The action doesn't create the fire creates the action. But you must be willing to move when the fire starts to burn, to step when the flame starts to flicker, to leap when the blaze starts to roar. The fire questions. But before you can rekindle the fire, you must answer some fire questions. These are not comfortable questions. They're not safe questions. They're the kind of questions that shake you out of complacency and force you to confront the gap between who you are and who you were created to be. Are you tired of living beneath your potential? Are you weary of settling for survival when you were designed for dominion? Are you ready to stop making excuses for a life that looks nothing like the dreams that burn within you? Can you feel it stirring even now as you read these words? That restlessness in your spirit, that sense that there's something more. That's not discontent, that's the fire calling you to your destiny. Here's what I want you to understand. The fire doesn't need your permission to burn. It was lit by God Himself, and no force in hell can extinguish it. But it does need your cooperation to blaze. It needs your faith to fuel it. It needs your words to fan it. It needs your actions to give it expression. What would you attempt if you knew you could not fail? What would you pursue if you truly believed that the same power that raised Christ from the dead was working in you? What would you declare if you really understood that you have been given authority over every circumstance, every obstacle, every impossibility that stands in your way? I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Philippians 4:13. This isn't just about positive thinking or self-help motivation. This is about awakening to who you really are. This is about remembering that you carry within you the DNA of deity, the breath of the Almighty, the fire of the eternal God. The question isn't whether you have what it takes. The question is whether you'll take what you have. The question isn't whether you're capable of greatness. The question is whether you'll accept the greatness you're capable of. Listen, do you hear that? The fire is calling your name. The sleeping giant is beginning to stir. The embers are starting to glow. But the fire needs one more thing from you. It needs you to stop living as though you're ordinary. It needs you to stop settling for small when you were created for immense. It needs you to stop hiding your light under a bushel when you were designed to be a city set on a hill that cannot be hidden. The unlimited potential. When the fire is fully rekindled, when your mind is completely renewed, when you step into the fullness of who you were created to be, there is literally nothing you cannot accomplish. Not because you become God, but because you become a fully awakened child of God operating in partnership with Him. The impossible becomes inevitable. The supernatural becomes natural. The miraculous becomes normal. You begin to see as He sees, think as He thinks, create as He creates. You start operating not from human limitations, but from divine possibilities. You stop asking, "Can I?" and start declaring, "I will." The fire within you burns with the potential to heal diseases, to break addictions, to transform communities, to impact nations. It flames with the power to turn deserts into gardens, to make crooked places straight, to bring hope to the hopeless and strength to the weak. Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. Ephesians 3:20. Immeasurably more. Not just more than you can ask, not just more than you can imagine, immeasurably more, beyond measurement, beyond calculation, beyond the wildest dreams of your rekindled imagination. This power, this fire, it's not reserved for a select few. It's the birthright of every person who has been born again, who has been adopted into the family of God, who carries within them the breath of the Almighty. That includes you. The fire burns in you just as bright as it burns in anyone else. The potential within you is just as unlimited. The call on your life is just as significant. The moment of decision. You stand at a crossroads. You can continue living as you always have, accepting the limitations that others have placed on you, settling for the small existence that the world says is all you deserve. Or you can choose to remember who you really are. You can choose to reject the lies that have kept you small. You can choose to renew your mind and rekindle the fire. You can choose to step into the unlimited potential that burns within you and start living like the divine being you were created to be. But understand this, once the fire is rekindled, there's no going back. Once you taste what it feels like to operate in your true nature, once you experience what it's like to see impossible things become possible, once you know the joy of living in partnership with the Creator of the universe, you'll never be satisfied with anything less. The fire will consume everything that's not authentic. It will burn away every false identity, every limiting belief, every small dream that doesn't match the magnitude of what you were created for. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to let the fire burn away everything in your life that doesn't align with your divine design? Are you ready to live at a level that will make your current existence seem like a shadow of what life was meant to be? The sleeping giant is stirring, the embers are glowing, the fire is ready to blaze. The only question that remains is this: will you let it burn? I have come to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. Luke 12:49. The fire has come, it lives in you, it burns in you, it's ready to transform you and everything you touch. Bend the flame, fuel the fire, let it burn until all the world can see that you are not ordinary, you are not limited, you are not small, you are fire, you are flame, you are the very breath of God walking on this earth. And it's time for the world to see you burn with all the glory you were created to display. The fire in you is calling. Will you answer? Strike the match, light the flame, let the fire burn. Your time is now.